In many unhealthy families, there's often one child, the child who somehow ends up blamed for things they didn't do, things they weren't even part of, and sometimes simply for standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you're nodding your head right now, you already know what I'm talking about. It took me until my 60s to realize I had been living this pattern my whole life, not just as a child, but in my marriage, my friendships, and my workplaces. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. So how does a family choose its scapegoat? What is it about that one child out of all the siblings that make them the one who gets blamed? Because it isn't random. There is a pattern. And once you understand it, you start to recognize it in your own story too. Welcome to Lessons for Life with Grandma Kate. If you're done with people-pleasing, tired of repeating the same patterns, and ready to learn what healthy relationships actually look like, you're in the right place. I get it. I was there too. At 65, I started learning the things I wish I'd known decades ago, like how to see the patterns, why we keep repeating them, and how to finally treat ourselves with the respect we always deserved. And somewhere along the way, I realized something that changed everything. When we don't understand our patterns, we pass them on. Not because we're bad parents, but because no one ever showed us anything different. That realization drives everything I do. Like a lighthouse, steady and strong, let's all shine a little brighter today. Most families don't sit down and consciously choose one person to blame. It happens gradually. One interaction builds on another until blaming the same person just becomes part of how the family system operates. Here are 5 ways the pattern developed. Number 1, you were different from the rest of the family in some way. The family scapegoat is often the child who stands out. Maybe you were more sensitive, expressive, independent, or outspoken than your siblings. Perhaps you noticed unfairness, questioned what was happening, or refused to pretend that everything was fine. That doesn't mean there was something wrong with you. But in an unhealthy family, being different can make it easier to single you out. Ask yourself, what made me different from the rest of my family? And number 2, one controlling person began treating you as the problem. The scapegoat role often begins with one controlling person in the family. It might be a parent, grandparent, older sibling, or anyone who holds power within the family. This person may repeatedly blame you for things you didn't do or hold you responsible for other people's behavior. A double standard develops. Your siblings' mistakes are excused or overlooked, while yours are criticized or punished more harshly. Over time, their version of you becomes the family's accepted story, even when it doesn't match what actually happened. Ask yourself, who first began treating me as though I were the problem? And number 3, other family members learn to go along with it. Once one person begins blaming you, other family members may follow. They may agree because it protects them. If everyone is focused on what is supposedly wrong with you, they do not have to look at their own behavior. They may also learn that supporting you could make them the next target. Some family members may actively participate. Others may remain silent and allow it to happen. Either way, the pattern becomes stronger. Ask yourself, who joined in and who stayed silent when I was blamed? Number 4, your reactions were used against you. When you are repeatedly blamed or treated unfairly, you will react. You might raise your voice, storm out of the room, or desperately try to explain yourself. The family focuses only on your reaction instead of asking what happened to make you react that way. They say, "See, you are emotional," or This is why we can't talk to you. Your response to being mistreated is then used as proof that you were the problem all along. Ask yourself, did my family focus on my reaction while ignoring what really happened before it? Number 5, the role became the family's permanent story about you. After the pattern has been repeated long enough, the scapegoat role can become part of the family story. You may be labeled the difficult one, the selfish one, or the one who always causes trouble. These labels do not necessarily reflect your behavior, but they shape how the family sees you. Even when you have done nothing wrong, family members may automatically assume you are responsible. They may continue telling the same stories about you years later while ignoring anything that challenges their version of events. Eventually, you begin believing the story yourself. Ask yourself, what story did my family create about me, and do I still believe any part of it? You are not doing this to blame your family for everything that has happened in your life. You are looking for a repeated pattern, because once you can see how the role was created, you can begin separating who you really are from the person your family decided you are. I don't remember an exact moment when I became the family scapegoat. It was so gradual. I'd heard the word scapegoat before, but I never thought it applied to me. Maybe once in a while, but not as an actual role I was living. I was in my 60s researching for this podcast when I had that light bulb moment. I am the family scapegoat, not just in my childhood, but in most of my adult relationships. That role has stayed with me my whole life, and I see it so clearly now. As a teenager, it affected me the most because I didn't understand what was happening. I was blamed for things I hadn't done while my accomplishments were dismissed or barely acknowledged. There was a double standard. Behavior that was accepted or excused from my siblings became a problem when it came from me. If one of them was hurt, either physically or emotionally, somehow I was blamed, even when I had not been near them or said a word. It felt as though I couldn't do anything right. I remember one time in particular. I was about 8 or 9, and my siblings and I were jumping off the top of a picnic table onto a large cushion on the ground, with our parents right there supervising. My little brother, 6 years younger than me, fell backward and hit his chest on a nearby chair, and it knocked the wind right out of him. I remember just standing there watching, but somehow my dad immediately blamed me for my brother falling onto the chair and began yelling horrible things at me. I didn't stick around for the rest. I ran off with no shoes on, walking the sidewalks of our small town, the whole time thinking, all I was doing was standing there. How could I have caused that? When I got home, my dad apologized, but at that age, the apology didn't undo anything. What stuck was that I was instantly blamed and his harsh words. There were so many other times after that, mostly with my mother. My dad rarely said anything. He just went along with her. And I remember thinking, there had to be something wrong with me. Why else would I be blamed for everything? What made it worse was that it didn't stay in my childhood, as I mentioned before. It followed me into group work in college, into every job I ever had. I was always the one who got blamed, told I was too much, or outspoken. Over the years, I went through bouts of depression. I had very little self-worth or confidence. I felt as though the letter L for loser was engraved on my forehead. It wasn't until I understood the family scapegoat pattern that I recognized the deeper effects. I had learned to automatically assume I was at fault before I even knew what had happened. I questioned myself constantly. I spent years reading self-help books and trying to change myself because I did believe the problem had to be me. I remember buying yet another book when my husband turned to me and said, "You've been at this self-help stuff for a long time, haven't you?" I remember thinking, yep, he's right. I've been trying to fix myself for years, and none of it is making sense. But somehow, I still believe I am the problem. I couldn't see the pattern. I thought these feelings and behaviors were simply part of who I was. Now, I understand they were ways I learned to survive a role I never chose. We've looked at the pattern, now what? Because recognizing the pattern is only the first step. Change begins when you start responding differently. Get my free weekly 100-word email on an unhealthy family relationship pattern, plus the corresponding See the Pattern Now What cheat sheet. Sign up for free. The link is in the show notes or visit lessonsforlifewithgrandmakate.com. Now here are 5 ways you can start to respond differently. You cannot go back and change the role you were given, but you can begin changing the way you see yourself and how you respond when someone tries to place you back into that role. Number 1, separate being blamed from being responsible. When you have been the family scapegoat, being blamed can feel the same as being responsible. Someone is upset, so you assume you caused it. Someone accuses you of doing something wrong, so you immediately begin searching for what you might have done. But another person blaming you does not automatically mean you are responsible. Look at what happened, not only in what someone is saying about you. What did you do? What did the other person do? Is there something you need to take responsibility for? Or are you being expected to carry responsibility that belongs to someone else? You can admit when you make a mistake without accepting blame for everything. And number 2, stop automatically defending yourself. When people misunderstand or falsely accuse you, your first reaction may be to explain yourself. You give more details. You repeat what happened. You search for different words, hoping that if you explain it clearly enough, they will finally understand. But constantly defending yourself can keep you trapped in the scapegoat role. It allows the other person to remain the judge while you keep trying to prove that you are not guilty. You do not have to argue with someone who is committed to seeing you as the problem. Sometimes you can simply say, "That isn't how I remember it," or "I don't agree with that," and end the conversation. You know what happened. You do not always need someone else to agree with you. And number 3, notice where you still expect to be blamed. The scapegoat role can follow you long after you leave your childhood home. You may immediately apologize when someone seems unhappy. You may assume you made a mistake before anyone else accused you of anything. You may try to manage everyone's feelings so they will not become upset with you. Begin noticing when this happens. You do not need to judge yourself for having this reaction. You are simply learning to recognize it. Once you notice the pattern, you have an opportunity to respond differently. And number 4, spend more time with people who let you fully be yourself. Healthy relationships do not require you to stay quiet, become smaller, or accept responsibility for everyone else. Pay attention to how you feel around different people. Do you feel free to speak honestly? Can you disagree without being punished? Can you make a mistake without having it used as proof that there is something wrong with you? Spend more time with people who listen to you, respect your feelings, and allow you to be yourself. The more you experience healthy relationships, the easier it becomes to recognize when someone is trying to pull you back into the scapegoat role. And number 5, create a new understanding of who you are. Your family may have labeled you as difficult, selfish, dramatic, too emotional, or the one who always caused trouble. When you hear those descriptions often enough, they can become part of the way you see yourself. But those labels are not your identity. You get to decide who you are outside the role your family gave you. Maybe you were not too emotional, but maybe you were sensitive to what was happening around you. Maybe you were not difficult, but you questioned things that were unfair. Maybe you were not causing trouble, but you were willing to speak up when other people stayed silent. Rebuilding self-trust means getting to know yourself without looking through your family's eyes. I was carrying a role I never chose. Once I understood that, I could stop trying to fix myself for problems that were never mine to solve. Other people's unwillingness to look at their own behavior did not mean I had to keep changing who I was. We also have an opportunity to stop this pattern from continuing into the next generation. As parents and grandparents, we can take responsibility for our own behavior instead of placing our feelings onto our child. When we make a mistake, we can say, "I was wrong," or "I blamed you for something that wasn't your responsibility." A sincere apology teaches children that adults are accountable too. We can also correct a child's behavior without turning that behavior into their identity. Instead of calling one child difficult, dramatic, selfish, or the troublemaker, we can talk about what happened in that particular moment. We can listen to every child's side and base the consequences on what each child was actually responsible for, rather than automatically blaming one child whenever something goes wrong. When children see adults take responsibility, listen fairly, and repair mistakes, they learn that healthy relationships do not require one person to become the family problem. The family scapegoat isn't chosen because something is wrong with that child. It's chosen because they stood out in some way, and someone in the family needed a scapegoat. Once you can see that pattern clearly, you can start to separate who you actually are from who your family decided you were. That separation doesn't happen all at once. It happens the next time you catch yourself apologizing before anyone has blamed you, or explaining yourself to someone who has already made up their mind. It happens in the small moment you choose not to pick the role back up. I spent most of my life believing I was the problem, and I know how long it can take to unlearn that. But the role was never who I was, and I finally understand I'm allowed to stop playing that role. If you recognized yourself anywhere in this episode, I hope that's the thing you take with you. The pattern was never proof of who you are. It's just a pattern. And once you see it, you get to choose something different. Whether you're starting to understand yourself more clearly or learning to do things differently, you're building the skills to grow into the person you're meant to be. Listening is important, but real change happens when you use what you've learned. That's why I created a cheat sheet. See the pattern now, what for today's episode. Join my free weekly email community. I'll help you name the pattern, point out how it shows up in your life, and how you can respond differently. Find the link in the show notes or visit lessonsforlifewithgrandmakate.com. And if you want more life lessons like this, be sure to follow Lessons for Life with Grandma Kate on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If this episode resonated with you, there's a link in the show notes to show your appreciation. Either way, I am grateful for you being here. If no one has told you lately, everything will be okay. Tomorrow is a new day, and with it comes new hope. As I conclude this episode, I must state that this podcast is designed solely for educational and entertainment purposes. While I bring my experience as a parent and grandparent, it's essential that you know I am not a licensed therapist. This podcast is not a substitute for professional advice from a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. Got it? Awesome. Until next time, what is one thing you are grateful for?